Howdy y'all, this is David Lee Kreitz, and I'm out here at the Arboretum again. As you can see, the nice beautiful trees and greenery and such. Today I want to talk about something that some of my past mentors and some of the past leadership things that I've run into have told me, and couple that with something that I heard today, and try to put it together into a coherent thought. And the thing I'm trying to talk about today is kind of you hear examples of people when they relate the four cardinal directions and how they might work with your business or with your life or with whatever. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to put together here. Back in the day, this is decades ago, I was in Amway. Who wasn't? Rich DeVos, I'm pretty sure it was Rich DeVos. I'll have to look it up, but I think it was him. He had an audio CD, or an audio cassette at the time. CDs were a long ways away, called something like The Four Winds. And basically he was relating his life, an example, of course, from the northern U.S., with the way that the winds from the different directions affected him, and from my memory, I guess if it's wrong, that's the beauty of doing a live video. I can go back and make sure that I did it right. If somebody points out an error, I can always redo it. But the northern winds, the northerlies, they were always cold and icy, and they brought snowstorms and things like that. Howdy guys, I see a couple of folks are watching. And so when these northern winds came, they just kind of drove you inside, and you couldn't really keep going out and working when these things are hitting. And then you've got the southerlies, the southerly winds. They're easy, they're comfortable, but they don't have a lot of power in them. And so what happens is, if you're out on a sailboat or something and you're trying to go someplace, well, there's probably not enough energy in the wind to drive you along, and so you can get easily stalled out. And then the easterlies, well, the easterlies are where all the storms and the hurricanes and things come from, and they just beat you up and tear you apart. and then there's the soothing, warm westerlies that kind of life is easy and comfortable with them. And of course, when you have the easterly winds coming at you, there's storms and things that's like the trials in your life that are beating you up, the obstacles that you run into, the walls that you just can't seem to get around, these things in your life that are beating you up and you can't get around them. All those are the easterlies, the storms and things. But then you've got those comfortable westerly winds, and they're warm, but they just kind of, if you're out sailing, you get a nice easy day of sailing about. And that's, as I recall, that's how he was putting this. And the whole thing that he was trying to put together is you have to trim your sails. You have to set your life differently. If the winds are coming from the north, you have to endure certain things, and if they're coming from the south, you have to keep yourself motivated, and you have to keep pushing, even though there's nothing behind you that's giving you that drive. And if they're coming from the east and they're beating you up, well, you have to have the perseverance to withstand the storms. Excuse me. And if they're coming from the west and life is easy, you can't get complacent. You still have to keep your sails trimmed. And so the point he was making is every time you look at these different winds, the directions that they're coming from, and the effect they have in your life, well, you have to trim your sails to respond to the direction the wind is going. And that lesson has given voice to a lot of my actions for several decades. It was something that when trials and troubles were coming at me, well, they were either the northerlies or the easterlies, and that's kind of how I thought about it. What am I going to have to do to endure this? When there just was no motivation, when I was waking up in the morning and I just couldn't make myself get out of bed and go do things. Well, those were the Southerlies. There just wasn't enough motivation to keep me going, and I'd have to think about that. And okay, what do I do to overcome that issue? And then when things were just going along smoothly and life was wonderful, it's easy to have your sails out and tack and the way you need to, and to keep going. And so as a consequence, in each of those phases of your business life, you have to be mindful of where you are and what's going on. And so that gave voice to my actions for decades. Well, a mentor of mine that I'm currently working with very heavily, Keith Hooper, today he gave me a brand new direction, a brand new way of thinking about these things, and it's given me a major paradigm shift. And I've spent the last several hours mulling these things over in my mind and trying to see how they actually play out. And so I want to lay those out here now, and then maybe try and correlate the way the two work. In this new paradigm, all of our businesses, in every business, no matter what, there are two different kinds of goals that we have, and they're completely different. And if you don't think about how they're different and how they interact, how they intersect, then you may respond to one goal in the way you should respond to another. And in this case, he was talking about, north and south is one set of goals. If you wherever you are, if you start hiking north, you're eventually going to get north, and you arrive there. You're there. I guess in this case you're at the North Pole. You reach a point where every step you take now is going south. You're getting further away from your goals. So the north and south goals, these are goals with a specific endpoint. That it's a goal that will come to pass. And so those goals, when you work on them, when you talk about them, when you think about them, when you categorize them, you have to think about them in a very particular way. I am going to go to a destination, and when I am there, I have arrived. And then there's other goals that are process goals. These are the kinds of east and west directions. Because no matter where you are, you can keep going east. And eventually, if you go east long enough, you'll get back to where you are, and you can keep going east and keep going east and keep going east, no matter what. And those goals are perpetual. There's just not an end to them. They're process goals, and these are in at least in the business that I'm looking at, the goal of say talking to 10 new people. That's a process. I'm not finished when I have talked to 10 people. I have that goal. I still have to talk to new people. I don't talk to 10 people and then I'm done. I talk to 10 people today, and then I talk to 10 people tomorrow, and then I talk to 10 people the day after. I keep presenting my opportunity to more people as time goes on. That's a process that will never end. It doesn't matter how successful I become, I'm still looking at who else can I talk to. Now, once I have talked to someone, once I have achieved once I've made that contact, and I'm there, and I now have that. Well, now I have a process. I need to turn them into a customer. I need to turn them into a partner, into a business associate, whatever. If you think about this in a traditional like the online sales, well, the process goal is people that I have to put my ad in front of. But once I've put my ad in front of somebody, I then have a process that I have to follow. And in the funnel world, that process is the sales funnel. So when you end that, they've gone through your funnel. They've given you their information. They've bought something. They've become a part of your organization. They've done whatever it was that you needed to take them to. And so you have a goal that's a long-term process that won't end, you still have to put your ad in front of more people. You still have to talk to more people. But once you've got somebody, then you take them through, and the perfect analogy that we have is you take them through your funnel, your sales funnel, but you still have to keep getting more people. And so the deal is categorizing your goals so that you know this is something that's ongoing. I'm not going to stop presenting to more people. That's a process goal. That's an east-west goal. You'll never finish it, no matter how far you go. There's always more. There's always more you can go to. You can keep going east, but once you finish, then you're either taking them north or south, depending on what kind of direction you're looking at. Let's say in a network marketing world, I find somebody. Well, I either want to bring them to a point where they're a customer, which may be like going south through a process, or I may want them to become an associate with me, a consultant or whatever in my business. Well, that's taking them north maybe. And so what you end up having is these goals that go east and west, and these goals that go north and south. Now, I guess you could use any direction you're looking for, but in my case, or in the case of this last paradigm shifting example that was brought to me, there is a north, and once you've gotten to that point, every step you take takes you further away from north, and so there's a point there, and so it's easier to see that as being a goal that has an endpoint as opposed to a goal that's a process. And so, for decades, I was running under the DeVos paradigm, where northerlies were things that chilled you, that drove you in, and easterlies were storms that trials in your life. But now thinking about it in this way, I have this east-west paradigm that's a process, that's a pattern, and it doesn't matter what direction the wind is blowing, east or west, as long as I'm moving along that line, I'm making progress. And sometimes, I guess the reason why this hit me as much as it did today is during these past several months, I have kept thinking that I was failing in my goals because I had north-south goals that I wasn't making, but I was making progress with my east-west goals. And so by redefining what I was looking at, yes, I am continuing along the process, and I'm making progress going through this process. I'm getting more done. I'm going further than I had gone. I'm talking to more people. I'm making contacts I hadn't made before. I'm making real progress along an east-west goal. And so my frustrations, because I wasn't making progress along my north-south goals, is now being tempered because I'm looking at my goals differently. These two are separate goals, and the directions that they take you are both positive. But if you don't think of them in that way, if every goal you have is just this linear thing, and they're stacked on top of each other, then it's easy, like I did, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that you are making real progress. You are getting closer. And so I wanted to put that out as my offer for today of maybe some help or information. Of course, this is going into my overcoming obstacles to online success, because to me, one of the obstacles was I wasn't making progress. Well, actually, I was making progress. I just didn't realize it because I was looking at everything just in a hierarchical way, and not being able to see the progress I was making in one direction because I was so focused on the progress I needed to make in another direction. And so that's kind of my thinking today. Again, I mean no disrespect to Rich DeVos if I misquoted his talk. It was a masterful talk, and I loved it. I used it in my business for years. I'm sure somewhere along the line I'll find the MP3 for it. If one of you knows where it is, then I'd love to have a chance to listen to it again. It's been decades since I've heard it. But again, this new way of looking at my goals as north-south goals or east-west goals definitely is helping keep me from being maybe depressed or at least sad or upset with what I perceived as a lack of positive direction, because I am making progress on my goals. So that's it for today. Again, David Lee Kreitz from the Arboretum in DeVos, California. Y'all have a happy.